This is the Brandon Smith Show, and I am your host, Brandon Smith. And the entire purpose of the show is one singular thing, and that's to help you live a life that's much more free from dysfunction. And today is one of our leadership therapy shows, so that means that I am hanging out with my wonderful, fantastic producer, Whitney. Whitney, how are you? Claps around, Whitney. Claps around. That wasn't that's a circular clap, but you didn't say how you were doing. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing
a audible communication of how I'm feeling.
Oh, the circular clap around your head?
Yeah, because you could hear it.
Okay. Well, let's see if you're still clapping after we finish our topic today.
Oh,
you should be.
okay.
So, but I'm not, unlike other shows where I've put Whitney on the spot and I'm forced her to do role plays, like the one where we talked about
is the right word.
Talked about getting you to say no. That was fun. I enjoyed it.
Hey, I know you did.
That was a lot of fun for me. And I think we should also we have a couple new additions to the show.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
But you like the new additions. So for those of you that are watching the show and listening, you know that I try and make it a point to add on a new bobblehead to the bobblehead collection. We have a new one. Whitney, would you like to announce our bobblehead? Drum roll.
That Ross guy.
Bob Ross, not the Ross guy. Bob Ross.
The painter
For those of you that don't know Bob Ross is
there are no mistakes.
The fantastic
only birds.
Public broadcasting
Let's make them birds.
Painter in the 80s that taught us all to just make happy trees and have big hair. And that's Bob Ross. So I have Bob Ross bobblehead. So now one more bobblehead that can agree with me.
So if you can't see it, he came complete with forest animals.
He did. He has forest animals and his own easel with a painting on it.
And
he's a pretty complete bobblehead.
Bird in his hair.
There's a bird in his hair.
Yeah, Dwight's
happy bird.
Dwight still holds the number one place in my heart, but
Dwight Schrute bobblehead.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Ross guy's number 2.
Well, for our topic today, we've got a couple new things for our show today. We've got our topic today, which our topic is going to be, it's an interesting one. It is the top 4 things you should not do if you're over 40 in your career. So for those of you that are either approaching 40 or have crossed the 40, these are the top 4 things you should not do in your career. So we'll talk about that today because I'm going to have you guess to see what you think.
I was going to say.
Think they might be.
I'm going to.
I know you're approaching 40.
Oh, no.
And you're not approaching 40.
I got a little while. But I will help.
Yeah.
Shed some light on this topic.
Shed some light. It is a good one. And I'll tell you where this topic came from for me and why it's so important. But before we do that, one addition that we're going to start adding to the shows is I'm going to offer from the web a dysfunction of the week. So I have one for us today. And it's simply a nice example of the dysfunctional party that lives in our workplace today. So here it goes. So the title of this dysfunction, as this person kind of wrote in, will you date my son? ? Okay.
That's always a great start.
This is always fun to know you're walking into a workplace and get asked this question, will you date my son? So here's how the story goes. I worked in a content management company in a content management department for a now defunct internet company, and one day decided to take a liberally long lunch. When I returned, my direct manager, a sweet but nervous type of fellow who often wore neckties with puppies and ducks on them. By the way, I'm actually wearing a shirt with monkeys on it, so I'm not this guy, okay, just to make sure everyone knows. Asked me to step out into the hallway where I assumed I was going to be reprimanded. Okay, so he says, I need to speak with you. Instead, he basically asked me if I would go on a date with his adult son, whom I'd never met or heard of. I lied and said I was dating someone, but diplomatically asked about his son's interests in case I thought of any single friends. He replied, so this is where it gets a little bit better. Okay. Games and gaming, computer, board, video, all varieties. Huge sigh. And he's a theme park mascot. We really just want to get him to move out of our basement. Okay, so we've got a good candidate here. So great pitch, and also made me wonder about how my manager perceived me. Basically, this was a failure to launch situation. Had I had my druthers, I would have figured out a way to charge for my services. So it's just simply like, I don't even know what to do with this. What do you any reaction to this?
I'm not really sure where you go with that.
I'm not really sure where you go with it either. Other than another great example, folks, of the stuff people do in the workplace. Not
Yeah.
awesome.
Don't offer out your son or your daughter
No, you
for
shouldn't.
dates.
No, you shouldn't
in
do
the
that. That's a good no. There's some lines shouldn't be crossed. That's one of them.
Yeah.
But clearly, given the status of the son, still living at home, and some of the things occupying his time, we may have some
Yeah.
boundary issues going on there. So
And think of the dysfunctions if she would have said yes and something didn't end so well.
that you're right. That could have gone not so good.
Yeah. So if you are asked to date your boss's son or daughter, you should probably say no.
We did a show with you and me and Natalie on dating in the workplace.
We did.
And the general consensus was, even though both of you had experiences where you did date in the workplace, it's funny, both of you said you shouldn't.
Yeah, we did.
You said, no, don't do it. It's
Yeah.
just not a good idea.
Oh, because 9 times out of 10, it seems it doesn't end well. But I figure that factor is way blown out of proportion if it's your boss's son or daughter. That just, I don't know. I don't know if you stay and work at the same place when that doesn't pan out well.
Yeah, I don't know what you do in that situation.
I say play safe on that one.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. Okay, so we are on to our topic today.
We are.
And I'll tell you where this came from. So our topic is the 4 things you should not do if you're over 40. Okay, so your age is over 40. 4 things you shouldn't do at work in terms of your career. I'm not talking about, in this case, I'm not talking about asking a coworker if they would date your child. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about career management kind of stuff, things you shouldn't do. And here's where it came from for me. So earlier this month, I did a session for a company. And in the company, they asked me to speak to, this company has set up a bunch of, kind of special interest groups. So if people have certain things that they're fond of, they can join. So it can be like the hiking group, or the group that is into video games, for example, or whatever happens to be. In this case, one of their affiliate groups was employees over 40. It's a tech company, so that they don't have, percentage-wise, they don't have as many employees over 40 as maybe a traditional company. And so I was doing this morning workshop, and I basically just asked the group, what are some of the challenges that you face being over 40 in the workplace today? Now, it is a more of an extreme example because it's a tech company, and they said our industry is a fast-moving industry. It's an industry really for kind of the young folks that are really creative and quick and kind of move that way. And so they had some interesting challenges. But it made me think, gosh, there's some things that all of us could take away, that if we're over 40, you want to make sure that you don't become irrelevant. So I create a list of 4.
Okay.
And I have them in somewhat of an order. But I would just be curious. You want to take any guesses? Or should I just jump into one? I always like to ask you for guesses. It's always fun for me to see. It always feels like a quiz for her, I'm sure. And then I'm like, oh, yes, I get to give her a quiz.
I have to mentally prepare myself for these like a week in advance.
Which I did not give her this question until about 30 seconds before the show.
Yeah, like that's what I have to get ready for is, all right, what is Brandon going to ask today? But I don't know.
You're looking on my paper.
I just try to sneak a peek.
You don't cheat. You don't cheat on quizzes.
This is uncharted territory for me.
Yeah, it is.
Things you shouldn't do in your career.
I don't know if you're going to get any of these, because this would be all things you would do almost all these earlier in your career.
I'm gonna take a stab at one.
Okay.
Things you should not do at 40 in your career. Wait to build your network.
She has been on the show, paying attention to the show. Listen, Isaac gave her a round of applause.
For Whitney.
All right, so I'm gonna go. I had that as number 3, so we'll just go ahead and just hit that one now.
Nice.
Okay, so we'll just jump right into that one. So, and not any particular order for this one, so I'm fine with starting with this. So you stop, quote unquote, professionally dating. You stop networking. You stop building your network. Really, really important. You should always keep your network going. And as all my friends in executive search would say, one of the worst things that, mid-level leaders or senior leaders can do is stop doing this, because if they get laid off and they have to build their network, it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And your network is the one thing that you own that. Even if you're a full-time employee and you're kind of a career salaried professional, while there's a lot of things the company technically owns while you're working for them, your network is the one thing you own. You own that. So build out your LinkedIn profile, build your network out. So if you do leave, you can leverage your network to get something else. It's your while working, your investment strategy.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I would even add to that, just because this is something that I have seen, but use of that network. Because sometimes, like, say for example, if you're let go from your job, sometimes you can kind of feel that coming. So I would say that your network gives you that opportunity to put some other things in place, either before you get let go, or if it does kind of come out of the blue, you have something to fall back on.
Yep. And so many jobs today are still being acquired based on people's networks.
Yeah.
Referrals and other opportunities given to you. So it's funny, I was talking to someone recently who had gone to a career fair. They went to the career fair and they said, so I heard that, I know you've got a whole bunch of jobs posted, but I heard somewhere like this crazy rumor that you have like a secret list of jobs that you haven't posted yet. And the recruiter said, oh yeah, here it is. And they showed the jobs. Like, these are all the jobs we are about to post for, that we're looking for, but we have not actually posted for them yet. Most companies have a secret list of jobs running that they're starting to look for, they're going to fill. And they may not have posted for them yet, but that doesn't mean they don't have them. And so if you're networked in, you can get opportunities first. And people get so caught up in their career. And if you think about that time period, 40 and over, you may have other family commitments, other things going on in your life, and you just don't want to do a networking event at night, or you don't want to have coffee with someone early in the morning because you don't have as much time. And I understand that, but when this doesn't get fed, it can really put you in a very dangerous position later. So this is one we've talked about before, but we'll start with that one as our number one. You stop networking. You start kind of dating and meeting other people and putting yourself out there and expanding your network. Really important. Okay. All right. So we have 3 left. So that's number 1. We've got 3 left. So our second one on the list, I'm going to get to right after the break.
Oh, good. I'll have a chance to ask you because I think I may have another one.
I'm not telling you anything during the break.
Oh, okay.
I might not even look at you. I don't want to give you any, my eyes, people can read my eyes, so I can't even give you any hints.
I'm not even sure what to say.
I don't want to spoil it. So stay tuned. When we come back, I'm going to give you of our top 4 things you shouldn't do if you're over 40 in the workplace. And even if you're not over 40, you can learn from these because you might be doing them now, but when you hit that magical 40, you need to start changing some of these ways. Otherwise, you could put you in bad shape. Okay, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, this is Brandon. I want to take a moment to thank you for listening to my show. We wouldn't have a show without you. In an effort to get you the topics, guests, and resources that'll make your life better, I need your help. Go to theworkplacetherapist.com, www.theworkplacetherapist, all one word, .com, and take the listener survey that's all about you and your needs. We'll be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card to one lucky listener. I look forward to hearing from you. Let's eliminate dysfunction together. Welcome back from the break. This is the Brandon Smith Show, and of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith. And today, Whitney and I are jamming on the 4 things you shouldn't do if you're over 40.
One.
She
I
did guess
got it
another one
right.
during the break.
I really did.
I told her, or you weren't going to look at her. I didn't say I was going to look at her. And then she guesses one, and I said, "You're kind of right." And then she got all excited. You were supposed to save that for the show. You were supposed to save that for the show.
I'm still pretty excited that I guessed another one.
Okay, tell everybody.
Wise beyond my years, Brandon.
That's very true. Tell everybody 30, 31.
No, we're
Yeah. Isaac just said it out loud. I didn't quite say it. I almost did.
that's not even accurate.
That's true. He didn't.
He added several months on.
Okay. So what is it?
So another thing that you should not do,
Yeah.
over 40 in the workplace, don't stop learning new things.
That's exactly right. I have that on my list. She's very excited.
High five myself.
She high-fived herself. I've never seen a high five quite like that before, but it was awkward. Awkward is okay if you're over 40. You are allowed to be awkward. You are allowed to be awkward. So I'm going to slightly amend the stop learning
That's
new
okay.
things.
I'll allow it.
And I call it this: the wrong amount of flexibility.
Mm.
And here's what I mean by that. So you want to be learning new things. You want to be learning new kind of ways of doing things, be adaptable, embrace technology. But you can go too far, because some ways of doing things are actually better than perhaps the way that maybe a younger generation might be doing things.
Okay.
So for example, if I go back to that kind of session that I did earlier this month, one of the individuals talked about how in their company they use Slack to do all communication.
Yeah. We like Slack.
And Slack is cool.
Mm-hmm. We're slackers.
But this individual said, we have so many Slack channels, you could spend your entire day just on Slack.
Ooh. And improper use.
And he said only maybe 10% of the content in the respective channel is actually valuable. So it's people have grown up using just social media and communicating that way, and then so it's creating more noise than it is really efficient communication. And he said we'll have two people sitting right next to each other, and they just chat or use Slack to communicate with each other, and they're right next to each other. So this is a case where they said, as a group, they said we need to be involved with Slack, but we should not be so invested in it that we're not actually doing the more effective ways to communicate, like going over and actually having a conversation with somebody. So you don't want to be so flexible that you're losing what you have learned to be effective over the years. So yes, learn new things, but don't throw out things. Don't compromise the stuff that you learned that does work. So it's a fine balance. You can be too rigid and say, I don't want to learn stuff. And one of the individuals in the session said, yeah, well, the way I get around this is I just won't do Slack. And everyone thought that was kind of admirable, but they also thought you might be a little bit disconnected from others. Now, this person was more senior leader, so he said, everyone's just learned this is how you interact with me. And you may have that choice, but that right amount of flexibility. So stretch yourself, but don't compromise on the stuff that you know is that you're good at.
That's good.
All right.
Good tips.
So our first one was stop networking, which you came up with. Second one was kind of the right amount of flexibility, meaning you're continuing to learn, but not compromising, which you did also come up with.
Yep. I didn't cheat either.
I know you didn't.
I can't read
but you
your
keep
handwriting.
looking. You keep look. I know. I did it on purpose, messy
Can't
like
read it.
this. I did it messy so you wouldn't read it. Okay. So how about another one? You got 2 out of 4. Number 3 on the list of 4. You want to try and guess, or do you give up?
I guess I give up.
Okay. I'll say number 3 is kind of wrap up your identity, or think of your identity in terms of either your technical skills or your creative expertise.
Okay.
And I'm not saying if you're in a technical role or creative role that you shouldn't embrace that, but what I find happens is people who are over 40, when they still see themselves as, creatives or technical experts, and they're working for a company, they're not leveraging the fact that what makes them different from somebody who's in their 20s is they have a little more life experience, in that they've tried things before and have had it not work, so they can learn from that wisdom, and they might have better skills at managing clients or even managing politics. So some of that, the people stuff, they would have learned, and they forget to embrace that. But more importantly, where it becomes dangerous is that if you have been in a creative role or a technical role for a company and you're over 40, then you've probably been doing it for 20 some odd years. That's 20 years of salary increases at just say 3% a year. So it's a lot cheaper for them to hire someone who's 25 with the same skill set you have at a much lower rate. And I've seen people in their 40s get invited to leave simply because they were paid too much money. Because over time, their salary had increased. Not because of any other reason than just inflation. You take a base salary of a creative at whatever it is, $40,000, $50,000, and you add on 3% for 20 years. And then now they're making 75 or whatever it is. And they say, well, gosh, we can get the same creativity out of this person who's 25. And they may even work longer hours because they're trying to grow their career. So why wouldn't we make that trade? So don't get so wrapped up in the technical or creative. Think about what are other ways you can add more value that can't be easily replaced by a newer worker.
I would even say that, and maybe what I'm about to say ties back into you learn new things, but I even almost think of that of like coding or a language, because there's some like if you started in coding years ago, they don't use the same languages.
Yep.
So that's another thing too, is that if your identity is wrapped in what you are doing may be obsolete.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't exist anymore.
It could be obsolete, or it could be behind the times, or it could just be not as fast as other people. But you can guide other people on how to approach it better. You have a time, not always, but time can equate to wisdom. Because time is, if you time plus intelligence, or some factor of that will equal wisdom over time.
That's true. Look at me.
Just look at you, Whitney. Isaac was laughing in the background hysterically, if you couldn't hear him.
I came out with 2 out of 4 of these.
Hysterically.
I guessed them.
So wisdom, that's why you'll see musical artists that then go into production, right? Or become producers,
true.
or have their own companies. And sure, they could still create music, but they say, I may not be as relevant anymore, but I can guide other artists on how to go about doing this. And I'm good at spotting that talent. I just may not have the same kind of I'm finger on the pulse. And that's one of the challenges with either technology or creativity. Your finger doesn't stay on that pulse forever for most people. For most people, it hasn't run. And then you just your music's no longer relevant, or your technical skills are no longer relevant. So don't get so tied up in that. Be willing to pivot and change your identity. So that's number 3.
These are good. What's number 4?
I try and bring good to my show. I mean, it is
like
my show.
That shirt.
Like I try and this is a great shirt. Okay, you can't see the shirt. If you can't see the shirt, it is covered in monkeys. Okay.
They look like dogs.
I was getting beat up by Whitney. My shirts were not
okay.
good. She didn't like them. I did a few new purchases. This is my monkey shirt. I love this shirt. It's a great shirt. However, she sees it and she says, "Oh, get your dog shirt. I like your dogs on your shirt." It is not dogs. It is monkeys. Now, everyone else in the office, okay, everyone else on the production team, 4 other people, all said, "Oh, I like your monkeys on your shirt."
No. One said cats.
No.
And for the record, there was only one shirt that I said looked like it was from 1995.
Now, this would relate to everyone over 40 and relate to Whitney as well, but not part of my list. Get your eyes checked out regularly too. That's also important.
Okay.
Going to an optometrist, because your eyes do change over time.
And the dentist.
And the dentist.
That's just
not
a
part of my
healthy
list.
practice for any age. Yes.
It is.
Including
and
myself.
Some need it when they're a little younger. So all these tips are relevant at all different ages, as we have found with Whitney. So if we go back to what we've already talked about, we've talked about making sure that we so things to avoid doing. We stop networking. Okay, she's trying to cheat again, folks. Stop networking. Don't do that. We become too inflexible and we're not learning new things. Don't do that. To have the right amount of flexibility. Third, we rep our identity up in our technical or creative skill set, and we're not able to add extra value beyond that or leverage the kind of wisdom we've acquired over the years. So number 4, last on my list, get too comfortable. That was a mic drop with my pad. Get too comfortable. Get too comfortable, and you say, "Oh, I've been here for 20 years. This is a great company. They love me. I love them. It's fantastic. I've got," and then you start counting, looking at the clock, and you say, "Oh yeah, I've got maybe 15 years left or 20 years left. Retire." No. That is a no. Okay, particularly, you all have heard my rant before I cannot emphasize it enough. If you're in a company over $3 billion, most companies over $3 billion globally are not growing. If they're growing at such low clips that, and most of them are publicly traded, that they're not meeting their shareholders' expectations of profitability. So what do you have to do? If your revenue's not high enough, you cut costs. What's the number one cost in almost all businesses? People. So the most dangerous place you can be sitting is having a fairly significant salary, which would happen over 40, in a big publicly traded company that's not growing, and you're not on the top leadership. So top leadership tends to get protected. It's that middle layer that is going to get slashed. That typically is made up of people over 40, 40s and then 50s, who have maybe been there a while. So do not ever get too comfortable. Make sure you're always, and it goes back to our other points. So it's a nice, good summary of all the rest. If we're learning new things, we're flexible, we're not getting kind of wrapped up in our identities, technical expert or creative expert, we know the other value we bring, and we're networking all the time, then we're keeping ourselves nimble, we're keeping ourselves relevant, and we're looking for other opportunities out there. Even if that means starting our own thing or becoming a contractor, those are also options for you. But if you've been doing this, you get too comfortable and you get laid off, it is very difficult if you haven't done those other things to restart and reset. Because often the folks that I talked to in this bracket, and it was even true when I did that session in that workshop, was they were asking the question of, well, I'm just kind of curious what's next. I don't know what the next season's going to hold. You know, there may be a runway here. So all things to think about. So we're getting close on time, Whitney. Any kind of thoughts you have, or hear my list?
It was a good list. It was a good, solid list of tips, Brandon.
Solid list. Good solid list and get your eyes checked out. That's also good. Exercise regularly. Do your regular physical exam, annual exam. Those are all necessary too.
We have podcasts on all of those topics. iTunes.thebrandonsmithshow.com.
Nice plug. Whitney's keeping her job for another day. It's always good. Always good. Keep it relevant. See? Gotta stay relevant. Just keeping it relevant. All right. Well, thanks for listening today and watching today. If you're viewing and you got to see the Bob Ross bobblehead and my monkey shirt. Until our next show, continue the fight against dysfunction every day, and follow us on Facebook.com/Brandon Smith, WPT for Workplace Therapist, or Twitter at the WP Therapist, iTunes.thebrandonsmithshow.com, and of course, my website, The Workplace Therapist. You can just Google The Workplace Therapist. You'll find me. I think those are almost all the places you can find me. There's a lot more. I'm around and about. And if you haven't gotten a chance to complete our survey, please check that out. We are polling right now all of our listeners to get a sense of what are things you'd like to hear more of, see more of, so we can make this show the most relevant and beneficial to you. Because the reason why I do the show is really for you. So tell us what you want more of, and I promise I'll get you that. It's really super simple. Oh, and you could win an Amazon gift card. Isn't that what we're doing? We're doing the Amazon gift card, right? That's what we're doing. Yeah, I know we're talking about a whole bunch of different kinds of gift cards, and Amazon's the way to go. So check it out. Okay, so until our next show, have a great week and an awesome life.